Lieutenant Kenna Shaw stood at rigid attention in the gleaming crystalline hall of the Selenarian royal palace, his dress uniform perfectly pressed despite the sweltering heat of the alien world. The air shimmed with an iridescent quality that made everything seem slightly dreamlike, but Kenna maintained his military bearing. As head of security for the human diplomatic mission, he couldn't afford to show any weakness. The massive doors at the far end of the hall swung open soundlessly, and Kenna's breath caught in his throat. Princess Clara of the Selenarian Empire entered, and suddenly the lieutenant understood why the aliens were known throughout the galaxy for their ethereal beauty. Clara's skin had a subtle, pearl-like iridescence that shifted colors with her movements. Her hair, if it could be called that, was like living strands of starlight that floated around her head in an anti-gravity dance. But it was her eyes that captured Kenna's attention. They were completely black except for points of light that seemed to mirror the galaxy itself. As the princess glided closer, Kenna noticed her body structure was remarkably humanoid, though more graceful and fluid in its movements. Clara wore what appeared to be liquid metal that flowed around her form like quicksilver, preserving modesty while highlighting her alien beauty. Lieutenant Shaw, Clara's voice was melodic, with an undertone that made Kenna's skin tingle. "I've been looking forward to meeting you. Your reputation precedes you." Kenna bowed deeply, as protocol demanded. "Your Highness, I'm honored. Though I wasn't aware my reputation had reached your court." A smile played across Clara's opalescent lips. "We make it our business to know everything about the humans who enter our sphere. Especially those as interesting as yourself." The way she said "interesting" made Kenna's neck flush. He maintained his composure, years of military training keeping his expression neutral. "I hope I live up to your expectations, Your Highness. Please, when we're alone, call me Clara." The princess moved closer, her scent reminiscent of star jasmine and something entirely alien. "I've watched recordings of your combat demonstrations. Your species' physical capabilities are fascinating." "We're not as naturally gifted as your people," Kenna responded diplomatically, though his heart was racing at the princess's proximity. Clara's laugh was like crystal wind chimes. "Perhaps not in some ways. But your strength, your endurance." Her galaxy eyes roamed over Kenna's muscular frame. "There's a raw power to humans that we find quite compelling." Kenna swallowed hard. Was the princess flirting with him? Surely he was misreading the situation. "Your Highness, Clara, I should remind you that I'm here as a security officer. My duty is to protect the diplomatic mission." "Of course." Clara's smile turned knowing. "And my duty is to learn everything I can about our human visitors. Perhaps we could help each other fulfill our responsibilities?" Before Kenna could respond, Clara reached out and traced one iridescent finger along the lieutenant's jaw. The touch sent electricity through his body, making him inhale sharply. The princess's skin was like silk over steel, cool and impossibly smooth. "Your body temperature rises at my touch," Clara observed, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Your heart rate increases." Such fascinating responses. I would very much like to study them further, in private. Kenna knew he should step back, maintain professional distance. But his body refused to move away from that ethereal touch. "Your Highness, there are protocols, diplomatic considerations." "Yes, always protocols." Clara sighed, though her finger continued its exploration down his neck. "Tell me, Lieutenant, do your protocols say anything about what to do when a princess requests your personal attention?" "I don't believe that situation was covered in my briefing," Kenna managed to say, his voice rough with tension. Clara's smile widened. "Then we'll have to write our own protocols, won't we?" She finally withdrew her hand, leaving his skin tingling. "Come to my private gardens tonight, after the diplomatic reception. I would very much like to continue our cultural exchange." With that, the princess glided away, leaving behind only her intoxicating scent and the ghost of her touch on Kenna's burning skin. The lieutenant released a shaky breath, his military bearing finally cracking. What had he gotten himself into? Every rational thought screamed that this was a terrible idea. He was here to provide security, not engage in whatever game the alien princess was playing. But as he watched Clara's graceful form disappear through a doorway, Kenna knew he would be in those gardens tonight. The rest of the day passed in a blur of diplomatic meetings and security sweeps. Kenna went through the motions professionally, but his mind kept drifting to galaxy eyes and star-bright hair. He caught Clara watching him several times during the reception, each glance loaded with unspoken promise. As the twin sun set, painting the crystalline palace in riots of color, Kenna found himself walking the path to the royal gardens. His dress uniform was replaced by his more comfortable duty uniform, though he kept his sidearm. Old habits died hard. The gardens were unlike anything on Earth, plants that seemed made of living glass, flowers that chimed in the breeze, trees with leaves of metallic film that caught the starlight. And in the center of it all, looking like she had been birthed from stardust itself, waited Clara. The princess had dispensed with her formal attire. She wore something that seemed woven from moonbeams, both revealing and concealing as it shifted with her movements. Kenna's mouth went dry at the sight. "You came," Clara said softly, extending one perfect hand. "I wasn't entirely sure you would." "Neither was I," Kenna admitted, taking the offered hand. That electric touch raced through him again. "This is complicated. Only if we make it so." Clara drew him closer. "Tonight, I'm not a princess, and you're not a lieutenant. We're just two beings who find each other fascinating. Will you let me satisfy my curiosity about humans, Kenna Shaw?" The way Clara said his name made his pulse quicken. "What exactly are you curious about?" "Everything." Clara's free hand came up to trace his collarbone. "How your skin feels beneath these clothes. The way your muscles move. The sounds you make when pleased. But mostly." She leaned in close, her breath cool against his ear. "I want to know if you burn as hot on the inside as you do on the surface." Kenna had faced down pirates, survived firefights, and stared death in the face without flinching. But nothing in his training had prepared him for the effect this alien princess had on him. With a groan of surrender, he pulled Clara into a kiss that shattered every protocol in the book. The princess's lips were cool and sweet, and she made a sound of delighted surprise at the human's boldness. Her body molded against his like liquid mercury, strong yet yielding. When they finally parted, both were breathing heavily. "Fascinating indeed," Clara whispered, her galaxy eyes now blazing with points of light. "Show me more, my beautiful human. Show me everything." Clara found herself drawn to the human training facilities more often than her royal duties should have allowed. Through the crystalline observation panels, she watched Lieutenant Shaw leading his security team through their daily exercises. The sight of his powerful body in motion stirred something primal within her, something she'd never experienced with her own kind. The Selenarians were beings of grace and fluidity, but humans, especially this human, possessed a raw physical power that fascinated her. Sweat glistened on Kenna's dark skin as he demonstrated hand-to-hand combat techniques, his movements precise and controlled despite their intensity. "Your Highness," her attendant, Vrel, spoke softly. "The council awaits your presence." "Let them wait," Clara murmured, unable to tear her eyes away as Kenna pinned his sparring partner with practiced ease. "This is educational." Vrel's luminescent features showed concern. "You've been spending considerable time observing the humans, my princess. Particularly their security chief. Is that disapproval I hear in your voice?" Clara's tone carried a warning edge. "Mere observation, Your Highness. Though there are whispers in the court about your fascination with Lieutenant Shaw." Clara finally turned from the window, her star-bright hair swirling with barely contained emotion. "Let them whisper. I am heir to the Selenarian throne. My fascinations are my own business. But even as she spoke the words, she knew they weren't entirely true. Everything about her life was political, including her eventual choice of mate. The fact that she couldn't stop thinking about a human soldier's touch was problematic. Later that evening, she found herself in the palace's vast library, accessing files about human physiology. The differences between their species were significant, yet not insurmountable. Her fingers traced the anatomical diagrams on the holographic display, remembering how Kenna's muscles had felt beneath her touch in the garden. They hadn't gone beyond that first kiss, though every fiber of her being had wanted more. Kenna had pulled away, his sense of duty warring with desire. "We should wait," he'd said, his voice rough. "Think this through." Always so controlled, her human soldier. It made her want to break that control, piece by piece. The library doors opened, and Clara quickly dismissed the holographic display. Kenna stepped in, and her breath caught at the sight of him in his formal uniform. "Your Highness," he bowed. "I was told you wished to see me." "I didn't summon you," she said, though pleasure coursed through her at his presence. Kenna's expression showed confusion. "I received a message." "Ah," Clara smiled, understanding. "It seems Vrel has taken matters into her own hands. My attendant appears to believe we need to resolve this tension between us." "Is that what we're calling it?" Kenna moved closer, his steps measured. Even now, he maintained that careful control. "What would you call it?" Clara rose, her form-fitting attire catching the library's ethereal light. "This pull between us? This fire that burns beneath your disciplined exterior?" "Dangerous," he answered, but his eyes tracked her movement as she circled him. "Potentially catastrophic. And yet here you are." She stopped behind him, close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. "Tell me, Lieutenant, do you dream of me?" His breath hitched. "You know I do. Tell me about these dreams." Her fingers traced the back of his neck, feeling him shiver. "Are they like mine? Do you imagine exploring every inch of my alien form? Learning all the ways we're different, and all the ways we're the same?" "Clara." It was half warning, half plea. She moved to face him, her galaxy eyes meeting his dark ones. "I've been studying human physiology. Did you know that? Learning all about your species' responses to various stimuli." Kenna's control slipped just enough for him to grab her wrist, stilling her wandering touch. "This isn't just about physical curiosity. You know that." "No," she admitted. "It's about how you make me feel things I've never felt before. How you challenge everything I thought I knew about humans, about myself." His other hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing her opalescent lips. "We could cause an interstellar incident. Or we could bridge the gap between our peoples in the most profound way possible." She pressed closer, feeling his body's response to her proximity. "Stop thinking like a soldier for one moment, Kenna. What do you want?" The last thread of his control snapped. He pulled her into a kiss that was nothing like their first gentle exploration in the garden. This was hunger and need and weeks of denied desire. Clara melted into him, her cool body temperature rising to match his heat. When they parted, both were breathing heavily. "I want everything," Kenna growled. "Every alien inch of you. Every sound I can draw from those perfect lips. Every secret your body holds." Clara felt triumph surge through her. "Then take it," she whispered against his mouth. "Take everything." But before he could claim her lips again, a chime sounded through the library. "Your Highness," Vrel's voice came through the communication system. "Your father, the Emperor, requests your immediate presence." Reality crashed back in. Clara closed her eyes, feeling Kenna's forehead rest against hers. "Duty calls," she said softly. "It always does." His hands lingered on her waist. "Maybe it's for the best." We need to think this through. No more thinking. She pulled back enough to meet his gaze. Tomorrow night. My private chambers. No more interruptions, no more holding back. She saw the conflict in his eyes, the soldier warring with the man. Finally, he nodded. Tomorrow night. Clara kissed him once more, quick and promising, then glided toward the door. She paused at the threshold, looking back at him with a smile that held all the mystery of the cosmos. Study your alien physiology files, Lieutenant. There will be a practical exam. Clara's private chambers were a marvel of Selenarian architecture, walls of living crystal that shifted colors with her moods, gravity-defying furniture that seemed to float on starlight, and a ceiling that opened directly to the nebula-streaked sky above. But Kenna noticed none of it. His attention was entirely captured by the princess herself. She wore something that seemed spun from pure light, her ethereal form barely contained by the gossamer fabric. Her star-bright hair floated freely, responding to her heightened emotions. The points of light in her galaxy eyes burned brighter than he'd ever seen them. You came, she breathed, extending her hand to him. Was there ever any doubt? Kenna took her cool fingers in his, marveling at the contrast between her iridescent skin and his dark tone. There's still time to walk away, Clara said, though she drew him closer. Once we cross this line. I crossed that line the moment I first saw you. He pulled her against him, feeling her alien body mold to his. No turning back now. Her laugh was like silver bells. So decisive, my soldier. Her fingers traced the fastenings of his uniform. Show me what that human passion feels like. Show me everything you've been holding back. Kenna had imagined this moment countless times, but reality far surpassed his fantasies. Clara's skin tasted like stardust and sweet metal, and everywhere they touched, that electric current hummed between them. Her alien anatomy was both familiar and excitingly different, each discovery drawing new sounds of pleasure from both of them. Your heat, she gasped as his hands explored her body. It burned so beautifully. Her own touch was cool fire on his skin, leaving trails of phosphorescent light wherever her fingers traced. The living crystal walls pulsed with colors that matched their mounting passion, deep purples, burning golds, electric blues. Clara's hair wrapped around them both like a living thing, adding another layer of sensation to their exploration. I've never. She arched against him. Humans are so intense. Kenna's control was hanging by a thread. Tell me if it's too much. Her galaxy eyes blazed. More, she demanded. Show me everything. Their joining was like a supernova, hot and cold, alien and familiar, impossible yet perfect. Clara's natural bioluminescence flared with her pleasure, turning her skin into living starlight. Kenna watched in awe as constellations seemed to dance across her form. She cried out in her native tongue, words that made the crystal walls resonate with harmonic frequencies. The ceiling portal above them showed shooting stars streaking across the nebula, as if the cosmos itself was celebrating their union. Afterward, they lay entwined on her floating bed, their different body temperatures creating a perfect balance. Clara traced patterns on his chest that left fading trails of light. I think, she said softly, I understand now why some of our legends speak of humans as descendants of star gods. Kenna laughed quietly. Pretty sure we're just evolved primates. No. She propped herself up to look at him, her hair floating in a mesmerizing dance. There's something magnificent about your species. This passion, this intensity, we Selenarians live for thousands of your years, yet I've never felt so alive as I do right now. He caught one of her luminescent tears on his finger. Having second thoughts? Only about waiting so long to do this. She kissed him, her cool lips sending shivers through his body. Though now we face the real challenge. Keeping this secret? He ran his hand down her ethereal form, watching the lights dance under her skin. That too. She sighed against his neck. But I meant dealing with the fact that I don't think I can ever let you go now. One taste of this, of you, it's not enough. Then don't let go. He rolled them over, pinning her beneath him. We'll figure something out. Clara's smile was radiant. My brave soldier, always ready to face impossible odds. Her legs wrapped around him, surprisingly strong. Show me that human passion again. Make me see stars. The crystal walls began their color dance once more as they lost themselves in each other, their different species becoming irrelevant in the face of their shared desire. For this moment, there were no diplomatic consequences, no royal duties, no protocols. There was only the heat of human passion meeting the cool fire of Selenarian pleasure, creating something entirely new in the space between their worlds. The scandal broke during the Selenarian Festival of Lights. Clara and Kenna had grown careless, their stolen moments becoming more frequent and less discreet. It was only a matter of time before someone noticed the princess's skin glowing with residual human heat, or the lieutenant's uniform bearing traces of stellar luminescence. Emperor Rolan's rage made the palace crystals vibrate at frequencies that threatened to shatter them. You dare to soil our royal bloodline with a human? His voice boomed through the throne room, making the assembled court flinch. Clara stood proudly before her father, her star-bright hair crackling with defiance. I have done nothing to shame our lineage. Lieutenant Shaw is a warrior of honor, a man of integrity. He is a primitive. Rolan's form pulsed with angry light. Their species barely understands stellar travel, and you would mix their genes with ours? Their primitive nature gives them strength we've long forgotten, Clara countered. While we float through the cosmos in our crystal ships, they fight and build and feel with an intensity we can only dream of. In the adjacent chamber, Kenna stood under guard, every muscle tense as he listened to the argument. His security clearance had been revoked, his weapons confiscated, but it was the separation from Clara that truly pained him. The human diplomatic team was in chaos. Ambassador Reed paced before him, face red with fury. Do you have any idea what you've done? Years of careful negotiation, trade deals worth trillions, all at risk because you couldn't keep it in your pants. With respect, sir, Kenna's voice was steel, my relationship with Princess Clara is more than a physical dalliance. Your relationship? Reed laughed bitterly. You're a security officer from Earth. She's the heir to an empire that spans 3 spiral arms. There is no relationship. But there was. In the weeks they'd been together, Kenna had learned every shimmer of Clara's skin, every musical note in her laughter. He'd memorized how her galaxy eyes sparked when she was passionate, how her hair created auroras when she was pleased. In turn, she'd mapped every scar on his body, learned every human expression, delighted in every discovery of their biological compatibility. The throne room doors burst open. Vrel, Clara's attendant, rushed to Kenna. You must come. The princess, she's invoked Xari. What's Xari? Kenna demanded, but the guards were already moving to block him. An ancient rite, Vrel explained quickly. She's challenging any noble who would condemn your union to prove their superiority in combat. But in her emotional state, her powers are unstable. She could harm herself. Kenna didn't hesitate. He dropped the first guard with a technique Clara had admired during his training sessions, ducked under the second's reach, and sprinted for the throne room. Behind him, he heard Reed shouting about diplomatic immunity. The scene he burst into was chaos. Clara floated several feet off the ground, her hair a corona of furious energy, her skin blazing with light that made the nobles shield their eyes. The air crackled with power. I challenge you all. Her voice resonated at frequencies that made the crystal walls keen. Any who dare claim humans are beneath us, face me in combat. I'll show you their strength flows in my veins now. Clara. Kenna's voice cut through the discord. Stand down. She turned to him, her light dimming slightly. My love. Not like this. He stepped forward, ignoring the guards who seemed afraid to approach. You taught me that true strength isn't about combat or power. It's about wisdom, about finding harmony between different forces. The Emperor watched with narrowed eyes as Kenna approached his daughter. The human's presence was causing her energy output to stabilize, the dangerous frequencies settling into a harmonious hum. They have to understand, Clara's voice broke. What we have, it's not wrong. It's evolution. It's the next step for both our peoples. Kenna reached up, and she drifted down into his arms, her cool fire meeting his human warmth in that now familiar electric sensation. The assembled court gasped as her aura extended to envelope him, their energies visibly intertwining. Fascinating, came a new voice. The High Scientist, Kvol, stepped forward. Your Majesty, if I may, the human's biosignature has altered. And the princess, her quantum harmonics have shifted to a completely new frequency. They've achieved something we thought impossible. Rolan's anger seemed to waver. Explain. They've created a genuine quantum entanglement between their species. Their cellular structures are synchronizing, adapting, evolving. This isn't just a physical union, they're literally changing each other at a molecular level. Clara looked up at Kenna with wonder. Is that why I feel you even when we're apart? Why I can sense your emotions, your warmth? Perhaps, Kvol continued, instead of seeing this as a scandal, we should view it as an unprecedented opportunity for biological and cultural advancement. The Emperor's glow pulsed thoughtfully. You truly love this human, daughter? With all that I am, Clara's galaxy eyes never left Kenna's. And I know, with every quantum particle of my being, that he loves me just as completely. Roland was silent for a long moment, his ancient eyes studying the impossible couple before him. Finally, he spoke, then perhaps it is time for the Selenarian Empire to evolve. The bonding ceremony took place under the triple moons of Selenaria, in the crystal cathedral that floated among the clouds. Kenna stood before the assembled dignitaries of two civilizations, his dress uniform modified with flowing elements of Selenarian design that caught the starlight. When Clara appeared, a collective gasp rose from both human and alien guests. She wore a dress that seemed made from captured nebulae, swirling with colors that shouldn't exist in normal space. Her star-bright hair had been woven with earth flowers that glowed with borrowed luminescence. The universe, began the Ancient One conducting the ceremony, seeks balance in all things. In heat and cold, in light and shadow, in strength and grace. Today, we witness such a balance made manifest. As Clara glided toward him, Kenna felt the familiar electric surge of their proximity. The quantum entanglement between them had grown stronger over the months of preparation for this day. He could feel her joy as if it were his own, see the love in her galaxy eyes that now held flecks of warm brown matching his own. You have changed me, Clara spoke in the ceremonial voice that made the crystals sing. Your human fire has awakened parts of my soul I never knew existed. Your passion has taught me to burn. And you have transformed me, Kenna responded, his voice carrying the musical undertones he'd gained from their connection. Your stellar grace has shown me beauty beyond imagining. Your love has taught me to shine. They pressed their palms together, and the audience witnessed the now familiar miracle, where their skin touched, light and heat combined to create something entirely new. A quantum aurora that spiraled around them, marking their union on a subatomic level. What we witness today is more than a marriage, the Ancient One proclaimed. It is evolution itself. The first true binding of human and Selenarian essence, a bridge between stars and earth. The Emperor rose, his form blazing with acceptance. Let it be known through all the spiral arms, the House of Starlight welcomes human blood. Lieutenant Kenna Shaw, rise as Prince Consort of the Selenarian Empire. Ambassador Reed, who had become their strongest advocate after witnessing their quantum bond, stepped forward. And let it be known on Earth and all her colonies, the United Earth Alliance welcomes Selenarian grace. Princess Tlara, rise as an honorary citizen of Earth, bridge between our peoples. Their kiss sealed both ceremony and treaty. Where their lips met, stars seemed to dance. Tlara's cool fire and Kenna's human warmth created a light show that rivaled the nebula above. Their cellular structures sang in harmony, neither fully human nor fully Selenarian, but something gloriously new. Later, in their private chambers that merged human comfort with alien beauty, Tlara traced the newly permanent starlight patterns on Kenna's skin. Do you regret any of it? The changes, the politics, the scrutiny? Kenna caught her hand, kissing the palm that now held a trace of human warmth. The only thing I regret is not kissing you the moment I first saw you in that crystal hall. She laughed, the sound creating ripples of light in the air. My brave, impulsive human. That would have caused quite the diplomatic incident. Worth it. He pulled her close, feeling their quantum-linked hearts beat in sync. Though I have to admit, becoming a prince wasn't in my 5-year career plan. And I never expected to be Earth's ambassador to the stellar realms. Her hair wrapped around them both, creating a cocoon of starlight. We're going to change everything, aren't we? We already have. Kenna smiled as her cool lips found his neck. The real question is, are you ready for the next adventure? Tlara's galaxy eyes sparkled with mischief and love. With you? Always. As they came together, their merged energies created patterns of light that the palace crystals would remember for millennia, the first song of a new species, born of earth and stars, of passion and grace, of two souls who dared to love across the cosmic divide. In the gardens below, human and Selenarian guests mingled, watching the aurora of the lovers' passion paint the night sky. And in laboratories across both worlds, scientists studied the miracle of their bond, learning that love truly could reshape the very fabric of reality. Their story would be told in both history books and stellar songs, the soldier who taught an alien princess to burn, and the star being who taught a human to shine. But in that moment, tangled in starlight and sensation, they were simply Kenna and Tlara, two hearts beating as one across the quantum divide.